What's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to episode 42 of Who Gives a Dram. I am your host, Connor Gilbert. If you're a new listener, you guys, thank you for checking out the podcast for the first time, and I hope you enjoy it. If you're a returning listener, thank you for the support. I really appreciate it. It means a lot. This podcast is presented by The Grapevine Media. Make sure you're checking out our site over there, www.thegrapevinemedia.com. And before we get into the show, you guys, make sure you're subscribed on all platforms: iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Breaker, Overcast, Podbean, Google Podcasts, Pandora, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Make sure you're subscribed. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on YouTube, leave the video a like, leave us a comment. Make sure you're subscribed on there, and make sure you're following us on social media: Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. To keep up with all the things happening on a daily basis over in that realm. Today we've got a very special episode 42. It's a Jackie Robinson episode. That should go without saying. The most famous 42 is Jackie Robinson. I just recently watched the movie 42 with Chadwick Boseman, rest in peace. And I think either today, the day I'm recording this intro, or yesterday was the year anniversary since Chadwick Boseman died. How crazy is that? What a talent that guy was, and especially to be able to obviously what he's going to be known for is Black Panther, and the impact that film had, out of this world. Although I didn't think Black Panther is not one of my favorite Marvel movies. Obviously, I think it's the only one that's been nominated for an Oscar, which is just crazy to think that a Marvel movie was nominated for an Oscar, and it might have even been Best Picture. I don't remember. Anyways, rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. But 42, Jackie Robinson, 42 episodes of Who Gives a Dram, and we have two very special guests coming on the podcast. As you can probably see, if you're watching the video, I have a bottle of Ry3 Whiskey sitting in front of me. This is a rye whiskey finished in rum casks. It is blended with 3 separate mash bills: a 95% MGP rye, a 100% Alberta Canadian rye, and a 14-year light whiskey from MGP as well. Blended all together, finished in Ron Izalco rum casks, and that creates this end product, Ry3 Whiskey, produced by Phenomenal Spirits. And today on the show, we have Karthik and Matt from Phenomenal Spirits. Karthik is the founder and CEO, and Matt is the COO and master blender. We had a phenomenal, no pun intended, conversation about this whiskey, about the history of Phenomenal Spirits, about how both Karthik and Matt got into the spirits business, and just a whole lot of other things. We had a solid conversation. Two really great guys. I'm very honored that they chose to come on this podcast to talk about their product, and I could not recommend this whiskey enough. This is one of my favorite rye whiskeys I've ever had. And the complexity and the uniqueness of this whiskey, I think, is bar none. The everything from the nose and the palate to the viscosity and the finish is just superb. It also will be attractive, I believe, to every sort of whiskey drinker. It'll be attracted to those just getting into whiskey due to some of the larger notes that are present. Someone like me who's not really a beginner but not really an expert, I'm able to find different characteristics in this whiskey every single time I sip it. And then for the expert, I just think that the rum cask finish really introduces itself into this whiskey very nice, and I just couldn't be happier to have these two guys on. So without further ado, you guys, we're going to hop right into the episode, and I hope you guys enjoy my conversation with Karthik and Matt from Phenomenal Spirits. What's going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Who Gives a Dram. And as you guys can tell, we've got two very special guests here on the podcast. We've got Karthik and Matt, both from Phenomenal Spirits. Karthik, the founder and CEO of Phenomenal Spirits, Matt, the COO and master blender. And together they produce this phenomenal, no pun intended, phenomenal whiskey that I got in front of me here, Ry3 Whiskey, which we're going to talk about a little bit later on into the show. You guys, what's going on?
Doing really well, buddy. Doing really well. It's Wednesday. It's about 6:15. We are in our distillery in our Virginia Beach. We don't call it as a distillery. It's a blending house. And fortunately, it's not all that hot. Our batch 3 production's going on. A lot of battle picks are going to be rolling out. And we're pretty excited. Yeah, we're pretty excited.
Exciting times. Matt, how you doing?
Doing great. Just finished up a great day of production. A lot of bottling going on right now. As Karthik said, we're getting ready to roll out a bunch of private barrel pits. So just rolling through them.
Yeah. Sounds great. Who do you got? You got a little guest there too, huh?
We got Roxy. She's kind of our warehouse dog here. Distilleries and blending houses since she was 5 months old. So she's well versed in the whiskey world.
She knows her whiskey. I love it. I love it. So before we get into the whiskey, guys, I kind of was curious, you guys both have obviously a background in the spirits industry. I kind of wanted to dive in a little bit as to what influenced both of you guys to kind of start on this path. Matt, I understand that, you were at a different company prior and you transitioned over Phenomenal Spirits. So I suppose, Matt, we'll start with you. You were at Joseph Magnus. If I'm not mistaken, you were co-founder, master distiller over there at Joseph Magnus.
Not master distiller, but I ran all of our operations over there, oversaw relation, and we really didn't have a master distiller there. We were young and learning.
Right.
So oversaw all of our operations, blending, bottling, everything coming out of there, brown and in a glass.
So you're at Joseph Magnus, and you're over there, and Joseph Magnus, especially now is a very prominent brand and a very well respected brand. I'm curious what made you, I know you guys had your infamous meeting there. I think it was in Virginia that you guys met for the first time.
We sure did.
Yeah.
And we were growing. We had investors come in, ended up taking a majority share of the company, and just, was growing it. They owned a couple other distilleries in Michigan. So their whole thing was to move it up there. And, they bring in a lot of, could share workload with the other companies. So it made a lot of sense. There was no way I was moving up to Michigan. My wife's from Virginia Beach and decided to make a change down here. And at first I was going to get into some coffee and looking into doing some coffee roasting. Something I've always been intrigued.
That's cool.
But I had met Karthik and I started doing a little bit of consulting work for him. He had already come out with the Azalco rum, but he wanted to do rye. And rye is something that I'm super passionate about, something I love doing, and always have planned to do my own rye at some point. And we met. We had our nice meeting at the ocean front, and then nice little walk on the beach. And yeah, man, his ideas, my ideas, completely aligned with each other, and kind of took off from there.
Right. That's amazing. So how long have you been with Phenomenal Spirits? Because you haven't been there obviously since the beginning. So how long have you been working with Karthik?
It's 2 years now. A little over 2 years.
Yeah.
And
Matt started initially on a consulting capacity. When we started working on a whiskey program, we call it as a program because whiskey is just not a hobby. Whiskey is very serious business. You got to have inventory management. You need to understand the projections. You need to understand the angel shares. You need to understand the proportions, how much you need to buy, and what kind of new fill which you need to lay down. There's a whole mathematical calculation which goes in the background. So it's a program as such. So when we started putting together that, Matt and I were like, figuring out like, how are we going to do this? And Matt had prior experience on building some of those, critical calculations, and he helped me with that. And that's how our relationship began. He on the operation side, me more on the product strategy and where the market's heading and how we need to put together a concept and really launch a brand as such.
And I'm sure on your end, looking at on more so product strategy, the whiskey world in and itself, not just rye, not just bourbon, but whiskey in general, especially in America, is becoming infinitely more popular throughout the, it's almost like as every month goes by.
Yeah.
So does that affect how you look at, and this wasn't necessarily something I wanted to talk about right at the beginning, but does that affect how you look at, long-term growth for, your rums, now your Ry3 whiskey, and then whatever is down the line? Do you take those trends into account and when you're planning where your next step is?
100%. That's the whole thing about Phenomenal Spirits. If you go to our website, it clearly says it's an incubation platform to create exceptionally high quality spirits. So specifically brown spirits, and that's what our passion is. It's not that we cannot do white spirits. So we definitely, keep a very, strong eye and ears on the marketplace. We read the data, we read the, analyst reports, we understand the market trends, we know what's happening in 2020, 2021, and we kind of know what's going to happen in 2022, with respect to the market trends, where it is heading. Based on that, and if we are, entering into a product area, we see a run rate of about, 6 to 8 years of run rate before it could taper down or, or something else could happen. So yeah, we see that kind of data points very, very closely before we make an investment. There's a good old saying in the spirits industry, you might as well lose your 30,000 to save a $3 million investment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it has happened to me, my first-hand experience, and you might as well put your, money in upfront to make an analysis of whether this is the right strategy, right product, right area you want to get into before you actually invest that, the whole time, effort, and energy, and capital funds.
Yeah, and it's something that you definitely, as you can tell just by watching you speak, that you need to be passionate about as well. You can tell that, obviously for both of you guys, the passion for whiskey is there. Karthik, I kind of wanted to dive in a little bit to, what made you want to start Phenomenal Spirits. You have your rum line that this Ry3 whiskey is finished in those rum barrels.
Right.
But what made you? Was it something that you always wanted to do? Was Phenomenal Spirits, was that idea always in the back of your mind, or was this something that kind of maybe something in life happened that you said, this is my passion, this is my route in life, and this is what I'm going to do?
Yeah, some people are fortunate enough to know, hey, this is my passion. I'm born with a gift, and this is what I'm going to do. And for others, if they're really, really curious about their passion, they need to seek for it. They need to look for it. They need to try a bunch of things. I'm an entrepreneur by heart, and that's for sure. But spirits was always in my back, in my mind. But how to get in, how to do it, it was I had zero idea about it. Call it a midlife crisis or early midlife crisis. I'm not that old, but call it something like, after being in the technology space for the last 17, 18 years, and done fairly well, and I'm blessed to be associated with a lot of great companies. An idea popped up that it's time for me to switch. And I've been an entrepreneur in the past. I've started companies, and this was my passion. Growing up in India, rum was huge. Whiskey was huge. It was part of our culture. I'm a personal bartender for my father, and
there you go.
It just runs in the blood. And when I came down up here, it's a lifestyle. Spirits business is a lifestyle business. And if you're going to be working 12, 15 hours a day, you might as well this be your lifestyle, because that way, at 11 o'clock in the night on a winter, when you're working in bottling or, labeling or whatever, you're not cursing anybody. You're still enjoying it, right?
Yeah. Right. No, you're absolutely right.
Maybe a little cursing.
Well, a little bit of cursing, maybe a little sip of whiskey here and there during that process as well. We'll call it sampling, right? You got to sample everything. You got to sample the bottle before you bottle it.
Quality control is what we say.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, that passion for the business has to be there. And I agree wholeheartedly with you. I want to get into a little bit more specifically. Well, why don't you mention, your Ron Azalco, your rum? I'm not a huge rum drinker, and but when we get into the whiskey, I'll mention this. I feel like, at least for me, being what I guess you can classify as a novice rum drinker, the rum is very much influenced in this whiskey to me. I feel like maybe more than others who have more experience with rum. But it was rum your kind of, was that what you were drinking? Is that what was just popular in your area? What made you start with the actual, Ron Azalco, and kind of go into that brand a little bit?
Yeah, before I get into Ron Azalco, I'm going to take one step back, and then I'm straight up going to get into the Ron Azalco, and then I'm going to give you the whole evolution and how we ended up where we are today. Before Ron Azalco, I want to start a mezcal brand. So I've been to Oaxaca 3 times. Multiple palenques, multiple distilleries. Met the Zapotecans out there in the mountains in the Santiago Matatlan area. Really tasted a lot of espadines, a lot of products. And we had locked down 4 different, types of mezcals, which we're going to launch. And the third time when I did go there, somehow it was a gut feeling that I should be doing this, and, you have to trust your judgment. This is a life-changing, career. This is, a serious commitment. And just signed a contract in Mexico, in Oaxaca, and I pulled myself back. I said, I need to take some time, and I did not sign on my 3rd trip in Oaxaca. I took the contract back home to Los Angeles. I said, I'll get back to you next week. And they were all surprised, and because it's very unlikely of me to do that. When I know something, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. It's like that.
Right.
But when I reached Los Angeles, I was 100% sure I'm not ready for mezcal yet. And even today, I stand by the decision. And, I don't speak the language, which is Spanish. And I said, you know what? I'm going to move on to my next passion. It kind of hurt me because, I was so passionate about it. I thought about the bottles, the names. I read about 3 mezcal books and, really went deep into it. But, then I went back to my drawing board. Okay, no problem. There's so many other spirits category. What are we going to do next? So if you look at the broad spectrum, rum is the only category which has not been premiumized. You have seen bourbon premiumized, vodka, gin, tequila, cognac, armagnac, brandy, aquavit, and the list just goes on and on and on. It has been premiumized at one point of their evolution or their whole journey of the spirits industry in the last 100 years. Rum is the only thing which has not been premiumized. So this is a category which is untapped from a premiumization perspective. From a volume, it is still a top dog in the industry, but when it comes to premiumization, it has not yet happened. So I took that data point, and that's how I said, my next passion was obviously rum. It was like a perfect match made in heaven, and right. I went into the rum business. If you dive deep into the rum business, the very first thing that comes into your mind is Caribbean. You talk about Jamaica, you talk about, Barbados, you talk about the beautiful beach and, sipping Mai Tai, that's right. The first thing that comes into your mind, right? But the sipping rum is a little more serious, right? A little more serious, a little more, appreciation for the craft, for the age, for the liquid. And there's a lot of great, pardon me about that.
Don't worry about it.
There's a lot of great rums from the Caribbean, a lot of great rums from on the agricultural side and South America, but there is not many cask strength, higher proof, really great sipping rums from Central America as such. There's not many. Right. There's few selected. So I saw that particular window of opening, and I said, how about we craft something, which is completely dedicated to Central America. So our product, everything we do is Central America. Our 10-year Ron Zalco is Central American blend. It's a 43 ABV, exceptional high quality sipping rum, double gold medal, and all the shebangs which you can think about. Right. 15 years of cask, especially for all the bourbon drinkers who love cask strengths, barrel picks, they would absolutely love it. No sugar, no color, none of that added. Really high quality stuff. And I think we have done something really, really a good product as such. And a lot of whiskey drinkers have appreciated it. Not only the rum drinkers, Matt and I talk about this all the time. It's a bourbon drinkers rum. Whatever we do, if we're going after the bourbon drinkers, that's the core American, appreciation of bourbon. We want to go after that particular, segment and see, hey, how about this? Try this. You think you may like this? Who knows?
Yeah, and that's obviously translated with the bulk of us bourbon drinkers. You mentioned, you won the double gold, and then you have the 15-year cask strength. Did you always have, and I guess, Matt, this could also be a question for you as well. Did you always have a vision of creating a whiskey that was going to be finished in a rum barrel? And more specifically, did you always have that ambition? It's like, I want it to be finished in my rum barrels.
Yeah. I mean, the concept was not there initially, but as I got into the industry, but one thing was for sure, I wanted to do a rye whiskey. That is for 100%. I was sure about it. It's not that I don't like bourbon. I love bourbon, but I've had my bourbon kick. I've had my Scotch. Right. I lived my Scotch, life too. But I've graduated to the next level. I like a little more hot, a little more complex. And after all, rye is the original spirit of America. Rye is, that's what people drank in the late 17th century and early 18th century. That's what it was distilled back in the day.
Right.
Bourbon didn't come into existence until in early 1900. It became really popular at that time. Right.
Yeah, for me, I mean, with the whole finishing part, my initial thoughts was when I wanted to do my own rye, it wasn't to do a finished product, but it's something I obviously know I've done, can do well. And when me and Karthik were talking about the program, it just made sense to keep the two brands, kind of in the same company DNA. It made sense to do the rum finish. Yeah. So when I started developing the formulation for the rye, we worked around knowing that that's what it was going to be.
Yeah. And also, there's a lot of good rye products in the marketplace. And one of the very common complaints, I would say complaint, more of hesitation from the bourbon drinkers is, oh God, my God, it's hot, it's spicy, there's a lot of bite to it. That's a very common reference point. And Matt being a master blender, when I sat down with Matt, and I did mention that if we make a rye, it needs to have all the original characteristics of a rye, but we need to shave off all the harsh edges. We need to make it mellower so that the bourbon drinkers are going to love this. The bourbon drinkers are going to, adapt faster with this type of a rye. And that's why we also refer this as a bourbon drinkers rye whiskey, Right. And rum cask finish really, really helps that, to achieve that taste profile.
Right. And, coming from someone like myself, where I wouldn't consider myself an expert in the whiskey, in the whiskey world, just yet. I think I'm still fairly novice, but I'm very passionate and I love to learn. It's my favorite thing to learn about. You were saying you were reading mezcal books. I read whiskey books literally every single night before I go to bed. Um,
That's
and
fantastic.
having that, and I was telling you this before we recorded. I think it's so awesome that you're taking your own rum, you're taking your own product and the barrels that product was aged in, and using that to create another product of your own that is totally
Yep.
unique in the whiskey space, totally unique from anything that I've ever seen. And it's all in-house. It's all, it's all phenomenal spirits. I know you guys have different mash bills that are coming in, which we'll talk about here in a second. But in terms of the blending, everything in that aspect, it's all in-house. It's coming from you guys. I just think that's super cool, and I imagine that that's something that both of you guys are very proud of. The fact that this phenomenal product is a combination of two of your own spirits.
100%, Connor. Matt and I, we take a lot of pride with the fact that once we pick the cask, which is the barrels, once the barrel comes to a blending house, everything is done in-house.
Right.
There are not many brands on the craft or emerging craft which you can say which they do that. Of course, there are distillers. From a blender's perspective, once it comes to a blending house, we do everything: formulation, blending, cask finish, bottling, labeling, QA, analysis. Everything is done up here. So that means it's a lot of hands-on work. It's truly, truly handcrafted. And, I wouldn't say it's a micro batch. We only do 3 to 4 batches a year. And we are on a time. We are on a clock. So Matt's on a clock. I'm on a clock, continuously on our toes. Yeah.
So we might as well just jump right into the whiskey here. And Matt, I was hoping you could explain a little bit this, not only to me, but to the listeners. This Ry3 whiskey, you're using 3 distinct mash bills, and you're using the 95.5 MGP rye, you're using an 100% Alberta rye, and you're also using I think I remember you saying it's a 14-year light whiskey. So what are and you're blending all of those into what we see, and then this is being aged in a Ranazalco rum cask, and then that creates this product that we have here. What I guess the short way to ask this is, why those 3 products? Why exactly did you want to choose those 3 distinct mash bills to create what we have here?
So coming into it, first off, before I started consulting for Karthik on the first round with this, he had already purchased some whiskey. So coming into it, he's like, "Hey, I already got a load of Alberta rye." He's like, "What can we do with it?" So I knew we already had that to play with. So going from there, it's like, all right, so what else do we have available? There's nothing better than the 95.5 MGP. It's a solid product, benchmark for rye whiskeys. So that had to be a part of it as well. So I started mixing those, blending them, doing different portions of it. And it was just falling a little short to me. It didn't have the complexity. It was tasting really young to me. We're using a 3-year 95.5. The Alberta was 4-year. So I wasn't thrilled with how it was finishing. It needed a little bit more length to it. And fortunately, I've used a lot of light whiskey in the past, my past projects. So I knew it well. I knew what it did. I knew what it could, bring to this product. And so just started kind of messing around with that. Went back to reformulize it a couple different times until we got something that we were happy with. So the light whiskey really, it brings these great caramel notes, tobacco. It gives it this great viscosity, mouthfeel to it, creaminess. And it really just, and also gives a lot of depth. When, we do have some younger components in the whiskey, but when you add that 14-year light whiskey, it really just brings
Right. And
a lot more complexity and depth and richness.
for those that are listening, quickly, how is a whiskey classified as a light whiskey?
Yeah, so light whiskey, it has to come off this. It's usually 99 to 100% corn. Our recipe is 99 and 1% malted barley. It has to be distilled over 160 coming off the still, and then it has to go into either used or new uncharred oak barrels.
Right.
So the ones that we're using are used casks.
Right. So you had mentioned you had used light whiskey in the past. Did you sample other, I guess, gateway mash bills where it's like maybe you tested out a different type of whiskey with the Alberta and the MGP, or did you just know that, hey, we need to get this light whiskey? Maybe like when you're tasting and you're saying this is still tasting young. Did you kind of know like that this light whiskey is what's going to bring everything together, or did you kind of have maybe some other ideas at the start? Maybe Karthik had already had another thing up his sleeve that had some more juice at the warehouse or something like that.
There were a couple other recipes that I got samples of and tried, but it wasn't working well together. And I said, having the light whiskey, I knew what that could do. I knew that it was available. We would be able to get it. And it just, as soon as we started mixing that in, it kind of, the light bulb went off, and the
Right.
product really came together.
Yeah, I think we spent about a good 7 months or so, 7 to 9 months, at least 7 to 9 months on the formulation on different whiskeys, and each go round it takes time to build the formulation. Once you know that we are going to use light whiskey, then we got to work on the proportions, right?
Right.
That proportions is a magic formula, and so we went back and forth on that quite a bit, and we had to simulate the cask finish experience, and so we had to simulate that, and then we had to work in a range where we wanted to be.
Right.
Yeah, because just because the whiskey tastes great doesn't mean that it's going to lend itself to being finished.
Yeah.
So you want some complexity there, but you don't want it to be overly complex that it won't take on those characteristics of the cask you're aging it in.
Yeah.
Right. That makes sense. And we might as well just go. Are you guys drinking the Ry3? Well, there you go. Perfect. We might as well just go in
this picture. One time.
Yeah, right here. There it is. Ry3.
Cheers, man.
Yeah, cheers, you guys. We might as well just go right into a quick little tasting session here. And who else better to do it than the guys who are actually making it? So, on the nose, and this is something that when I first cracked open this bottle, I would say about 2 months ago. I found it here in Connecticut. I was super excited. Obviously, I had seen you guys all over, social media, and I've seen the awards of the rum. I was like, I gotta try this whiskey. By the way, and I know this typically is MSRPing for around $50, give or take.
So it's anywhere between, depending on the state and taxes, anywhere between $49.99 to $55, is typically what you're going to find, and there are some states which is slightly higher taxes, or metro, in the big city, it could go up to close to 57, 58, which is understandable. But for the most part, you'll get it for 54, 55 is where you will find it.
Well, I'll tell you, in Connecticut, and I don't know if this store was just being kind to me, I found this for $39.99.
Woo, yeah. So that's a phenomenal smoking deal. If you have that, you should go grab it, because that probably might be like, might be some kind of a mistake or not.
I don't know.
Happening.
It said it was
Yeah.
on sale. It was a liquor store that I frequent. I won't say who they are, but I thought it was on sale. I had a different color tag, and I was like, maybe who knows why, but I knew that, it was my first time seeing Ry3, and I was like, this is just the perfect moment. I've been looking for this. The first store I go in today, or on that day, I find the whiskey, and it's like $10 cheaper. Because after sipping this whiskey a few times, you can tell this deserves every single bit of dollar that's put into this bottle, because, and we'll go into the notes here. It truly is, again, no pun intended, phenomenal. But on the nose, and when I cracked open this bottle for the first time, and I think this is why my novice of being a rum drinker comes out, I was smacked in the face with a very, like, a maple syrup and a marshmallow, kind of a deep sugar type of sweetness. But then, there's also that rye spice and cinnamon nose to it. What do you guys typically see? What do you guys get, or what did you make it to be? So what the nose would be?
I mean, the big thing we made it to be is to have a lot of notes, a lot of flavors, a lot of complexity, something that you can just keep diving in back over and over and over again and pick something up different every single time. So I wanted something that was going to you're going to sit and drink and be like, what am I drinking here? This isn't rye that I'm used to. So that was
absolutely not. Yeah.
That was my number one goal. And then with the cask finishing, I wanted you to get the essences of the rum, but I didn't want it to taste like it was, rum was poured into a glass of whiskey. So I didn't, there's, some other places you can find some rum cask finished ryes, and, it tastes like, big, massive sugar bomb, caramel bomb. And that's not what I'm going for. Yeah, I wanted the rum notes to be there, but subtle.
Sorry, guys, if there's a background noise, Roxy is snoring. Okay. So
man, I didn't think I was that bad of an interviewer. Come on.
No. I'm actually more concerned about Roxy being with us, because she's been with us for so many different of the podcasts. She's like, oh, you're doing what? You're doing one more?
Oh, there she is.
We've been here for about 13 hours, so it's been a long day for us.
Oh yeah, I can only imagine. I'm the same thing, just getting home from a long day of work. But anyways, with the palate, I totally agree with you, Matt. The rum is influenced. You can tell that I guess you can tell that it's finished, and you can tell there's definitely a sweeter aspect to it, and almost like a tropical aspect to it on the palate. And it's not like any other rye whiskey that I've had. But what I really like about it is that the rye spice is still very prevalent, especially right on the forefront. And it's a big rye on the finish. I get a lot of rye spice, a lot of tobacco on the finish. And it's almost like it transitions from the rye, and then that cask is really influenced in the middle portion of the palate, and then on the back end it's just a big long rye tobacco. It's just, I mean, it's so complex, and it's unlike any other rye whiskey. And I'm not just saying this because you guys are on the show. This is why I wanted to have you guys on the show. It's unlike any other rye whiskey that I've ever had, and I would have to imagine that's chalked up, not only to a superb blend, but the influence of the rum cask on the whiskey itself.
100%. I completely agree with you. A lot more citrus, a lot more, a lot more fruit forward, and you definitely did a phenomenal job of explaining and putting together the taste notes, and definitely not a novice, and almost like an expert taste note. description. So that was fantastic. Yeah.
And I've heard other people describe this whiskey, and I believe it's because of the blend with the light whiskey in it, as buttery and as creamy. I don't. I've been sipping this, every few days, especially in lead up to this, just to kind of see what I think and not sound like a total doofus while on the show here. Is the light whiskey, is it more creamy and buttery as a taste, or is it more as a viscosity? Because to me, this is not a very oily whiskey. It's not dry. It's almost like the light whiskey blend is like bridging everything together from the rye and from the rum cask. And it's kind of the puzzle pieces in the middle, and it's forming it all together to just make it just for lack of a better term, a smooth whiskey throughout.
Yeah. So the light whiskey is going to do both. It is going to give you a little bit of that buttery taste, but and the creaminess, but more than anything, it's going to do that, give you that viscosity, that creamy feel.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what I get. That was actually one of the first things that I noticed as well, is how I almost want to say light it felt, not going down, but the entire experience, the palate, how light the whiskey felt. But there's such an explosion of flavor that, again, it's just unlike anything that I've ever tasted. And especially coming from a rye whiskey. And Karthik, I was telling you this before, I'm a bourbon guy. I always have been. I got into whiskey with Bullet bourbon. That's how I really kind of was introduced to the whiskey game. And coming from a bourbon drinker, I mean, Ry3 is going to be a staple of mine moving forward.
We are honored to hear it. We're really, really happy to hear that. That's the whole idea. If we can get one bourbon drinker to, appreciate the rye whiskey, we have done our job.
Well, then you've done your job, because you transitioned me over.
Bigger. Yeah.
I always give a score for whiskeys on the show. Who gives a Dram score? Without diving, I've kind of already dove into tasting notes. I mean, this is from what I can remember, it's got to be one of my favorite ryes. I mean, and I've had a lot of high quality ryes. Probably my favorite to date has been the Michter's Barrel Strength. And I think this is, we forgot to mention this is 100 proof, 50%, which I really enjoy as well. It's right hitting along my ideal proof line of like 100 to 110. This is right up there with one of my favorite ryes I've ever tasted. And I'm giving this, for the listeners at home who listen to my scores here, I'm giving this a solid 9.2. I mean, I think this is my favorite rye I've ever had. And I'm not just saying that. So cheers to that. This is something that just blows me away every time.
And thank you for all the listeners for supporting the rye whiskey and our brand, our category, and supporting Connor in his podcast, and showing him all the love, and encouraging him, showing all the likes. This is what it's required. Craft spirits is not an easy business, and most of the companies are bootstrapped, self-funded, and working from ground up. And you exactly know what that means. That means it means a lot of support, a lot of love, a lot of push and elevation from the people like yourself to help us proceed to the next level.
You're right. Well, thank you very much. That means a lot. And I just have one more question for you guys before we end the show here. And this is for both of you. Obviously, right now, you guys are in a good spot. You have this great whiskey. You have your award-winning rums. You have everything set up. I know you're doing your cask strength barrel picks for certain groups around the country. You're expanding your distribution to certain, to more and more states. where does not only Ry3, but where does Phenomenal Spirits go from here? What does the future look like for Phenomenal Spirits?
Yeah, I mean, Phenomenal Spirits as a company is an idea, right? It's an idea, it's a vision. And under the Phenomenal Spirits, we create brands. And so Phenomenal Spirits is here to stay. What we want to do with our brands is we want to take it international. We want to take it. We want to do our company and our brand to be the most sought after brand, sought after company who creates exceptionally high quality spirits, has a reputation to deliver superb cask finish or brown spirits or whatever category we do at the right price point, and enter into the marketplace where people are looking for it,
Right.
we just drive and we want to provide that experience. You go to our website, we don't have any BS, we don't have any made up stories, we don't have any of that. We are two straight up guys who want to make amazing whiskeys and rums and spirits. In short, we want to be a fast emerging craft spirits brand company which makes exceptionally high quality spirits who are well respected and continue to do every year, blend after blend, batch after batch, they put out amazing products. And that's that. And it could go anywhere. Spirits is a long game, and you got to play the long game. And we have a vision where we want to take by 2025. We want to be in 25 strategic markets. And we have a certain goals we want to hit with respect to sales volume. We have a certain goals we want to hit with respect to revenue volumes and revenue numbers. And we want to strike some strategic partnership with some companies, with some muscles where we can have the access and the pool of capital to get to the next level. And I'm pretty confident we are going to get there. Might not be the first try, might not be the second try, but we ain't going to stop. We ain't stopping.
Ain't gonna stop me. Kanye and Jay-Z said it best.
Exactly. We're not stopping. Continue to push.
Right. Yeah. Well, you guys, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. This has truly been an honor. I'm so happy I was able to talk to you guys for a little bit as someone who, not even a year ago started this podcast. I'm so happy that I'm able to meet incredible people like yourself. And in terms of the whiskey, again, you've got a customer in me for life, and whatever you guys come out with, I am gonna be purchasing, and I'm gonna be consuming. And I'm happy that my listeners now get to experience the greatness that is Ry3, the greatness that is Phenomenal Spirits. And I seriously wish you guys nothing but the best in your future endeavors.
Appreciate it, and I will let you know. Keep your eyes open. We got something special coming out here in the fall on the Ry3. It's not going to be rum cask finish. We got some other things we're playing with. So
yeah,
but I have a little treat coming out here soon.
Yeah, we got something special for in our industry term, we call it as OND, October, November, December. It's the holiday season, so we got something special coming. It's cooking, and we haven't put out much content on that. Maybe in a month and a half we will, but it's in the progress right now. And something really vintage, something really old, something really complex, something very, very limited, very limited. And when it comes, pick it up, because
it's going to be about what, 1,200 bottles.
Yeah, 1,200 bottles
released for the country,
for the nation. That's it.
Yep.
For the nation. And, pick it, because we're not going to do that again. And that's a one batch thing for the holiday season. And I want to thank you, Connor, for calling us into the show, and an opportunity and a platform to send our message to all the bourbon lovers, rum lovers, craft spirits lovers. Thank you for your elevating the category and helping entrepreneurs like us. And like us, And follow us in Instagram, Ry3 Whiskey. Ron Izalco Rum, which is also Ron Izalco is also an Instagram handle in social media. We are also in Facebook. And Phenomenal Spirits is purely we focus on the distillery and blending activities. Not so much fun content, but mostly on the production contents which we put, once in a while. Follow us, and it means a lot for us. And thank you so much.
You guys are more than welcome to come on the show anytime. I will link all social media and all links down in the bio below. Again, Karthik, Matt, thank you guys so much for coming on.
Thank you so much.
All right, you guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Karthik and Matt over at Phenomenal Spirits. It was truly an honor to have those two gentlemen on the show. And everything Ry3 Whiskey and Phenomenal Spirits will be linked below in the bio. And I cannot wait to see what Phenomenal Spirits has coming up in the future. They have a customer with me for life. And I'm very happy that they chose to come on Who Gives a Dram and talk about their product. And I'm just happy that this whiskey exists because I truly love it. And it's something that I'm always going to keep stocked on my shelves for as long as I can find it. But that's going to do it for this week. Thank you guys for tuning into the show. Make sure you're supporting the show by subscribing on all platforms, leaving a like on YouTube, telling a friend about the show, leaving a rating and review on iTunes, and following us on all social media. TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Who Gives a Dram. Again, everything Ry3 Whiskey and Phenomenal Spirits will be linked below. And that's going to do it. So until next week, you guys, Nick Bossy's going to play us out What Happened to Country. And don't forget, whiskey is the water of life, so let's start living.
My hands are tired from paying my bills, staring at a bottle, I'm aiming to kill. The weeks passing by and the seasons keep changing. I'm playing my song, trying to make me a name. People say as they walk out the bar, the kid's gone places, maybe even a star. They don't play country down in Nashville today, just the same chord progression with nothing to say. What happened to country? 3 chords and the truth. And who's gonna step up and fill their big shoes, writing songs about outlaws, singing all night, and songs that'll make a grown man cry. They use auto-tune now down on Music Row, 'cause true country died there a long time ago. No, they don't play Waylon on the boulevard, but they'll do anything to be rock stars. What happened to country? 3 chords and the truth. And who's gonna step up and fill their big shoes, writing songs about outlaws, singing all night, and songs that'll make a grown man cry. believe there is hope for us yet, 'cause there's millions of people who cannot forget the way Johnny Cash brought a tear to their eyes, or how Marty Robbins painted Texas skies. What happened to country, 3 chords and the truth? And who's gonna step up and fill their big shoes, writing songs about outlaws, singing all night, and songs that'll make a grown man cry? A grown man cry. A grown man cry. I won't let country die.